Yeah, more of our customers are upmarket, what I'd say enterprise clients compared to the mom and pop and the sort of the smaller SaaS and Web 2 guys. The majority of them are now larger SMB and enterprise. Yeah, I don't think it was necessarily happened by design, but sort of pushed more, I guess, resources that way. It's trended towards more enterprise adopting AppLogic and our virtual private data center offering, and we've been, since that transition, really focused more on that and away from the lower end VPS and the lower priced UPDC offerings. I used a reference client in my actual presentation. I used Kana, who's was one of the largest publicly traded CRM. Actually, they got taken private by a private equity firm. But from that standpoint, sure, they use test and dev environments, but then also two of the largest Fortune 100 companies pretty much in the world are running production environments on virtual private data center, full cloud deploys, some in the US and some in our Berlin facility as well. So from that standpoint, that would sort of prove that theory false. And I think part of it ties back to what I was talking about as well, the adoption and the enablement of the CIOs and who's behind. So with the example of Kana, their CIO and CTO were sort of the enablers and sort of the proponents of pushing it forward. And I think that really goes into who's adopting what, because if you have a CIO that's a little bit shy and maybe in place to make some other people happy and necessarily drive their own direct initiatives as far as technology, it might not be used in that total production environment. I think, again, it's back to an evolutionary process, and you're going to have some people that adopt it a lot earlier, but two of our larger clients are both in almost full production environments, and Kana specifically will go, let's call it 90 to 95% full production environment, including additional traditional migration from dedicated into that within the next year. So a couple things I think for what we've done at least, maybe not, I don't think it's unique to us, Andy talked about it as well, but from a hybrid standpoint, there is some issues based on compliance and stuff that are still, I wouldn't say better left, but for peace of mind purposes, have been left in a traditional dedicated environment. I think the security concerns will go a little bit farther away when we talk about not necessarily putting anything from them in a public cloud. Everything's a private, so it's almost in so much as a dedicated environment unto themselves, right? So they know that from a standpoint of sharing of data, from privacy concerns, there's not that. They also then control their own private cloud where we have certain management tools and stuff. But again, we're more an enabler for them. So they're within their own dedicated environment, but sort of from a compliancy standpoint, both in overseas and here, that's been addressed that way. And then the third thing is the hybrid model where some pieces of their storage and some security appliances still sit outside around the peripheral and then are tied back in. I think it's the way that it's really designed. It's not anything technology-wise. It's big and great. It's the same thing that Andy said. Andy used the model of public cloud and private cloud and a hybrid of both. So there's also then the hybrid model of dedicated traditional environment tying into the cloud, and that's what I refer to as sort of, I guess you could say, a little bit of a differentiation for us that's allowed us on the enterprise to give more peace of mind to the CTOs, to CIOs, to allow them to adopt, if you want to say, at their own pace without throwing them sort of all in or nothing. Again, I don't think it's just company. I think it's going to be driven within from leadership. And like I mentioned, the James Statton article from Forrester says, hey, as the new technology adopts, then CIO's role changes, right? And I think it's those people that are driving it. So a lot of older companies that have traditional CIOs, maybe, or CTOs, or technology folks that have grown up on a different era, but in different technologies, don't necessarily tend to adopt it as fast. They're going to be resistant and hold back, even if you have new leadership come in. I think you do see more people, they use Kana as another example, or whoever that has that leadership that plays in that space, right? They always have to be fresh. They always have to be looking at developing. I think also a lot more enterprise companies that use a SaaS application or SaaS model will adopt it a lot faster. So we do have a lot of traditional, we have a couple of traditional beverage companies that are slower to adopt. So I wouldn't say I think the hybrid appeals potentially to more traditional companies that allows them to toe dip, or whatever you want to use the word, and get their feet wet moving forward. The comfort level grows. Again, I use the example with the U.S. government, right? $76 billion they spend on IT, and if they've got the endorsement basically from their CIO panel moving forward, who cares really about that as much as the overall level of influence, the circle of influence, right, that governmental body has. So as more and more people see the U.S. government adopting and putting those regulations into for every RFQ in 2012, for all the new existing infrastructure that's going to be upgraded in 2012, they have to go to the cloud first. Well, I think that's a security blanket, if you want to so call it, for a lot of other CIOs that are going to look at, well, hey, they've done it.
Right.
And that circle of influence is going to help a lot more people adopt quicker. I don't think it's a scenario of, hey, build it, they will come. I think it has to be built. It's a great profit center for us, but I think it's also building your business and evolving your business, because you're going to stay stagnant if not. If you just said, like one gentleman asked, hey, would you, if you had the option of building and dedicated a cloud, well, where would you put the developmental resources and stuff? 100% into cloud. I think commodity is a great word for servers, because in the cloud everything's agnostic, right? It doesn't matter as much. And I think now you have to put the investment in now, not for down the road. You're constantly evolving that, and down the road, so it's sort of like a journey, if you want to say. But you're building pieces now that are profitable now, but also then advance your customers and clients' practices and sort of infrastructure, everything now. So yeah, there is some CapEx required. I think that's the biggest debate right now out there between public and private, because private costs a lot more money, right? Public you can share, you can, when people aren't using it, then there's cost savings. But with the private, if you're going to build big private clouds, there is a lot of CapEx up. But again, I think that changes with consumption needs of enterprise clients, and that's where you have to just make the numbers work.